The lights dimmed to a warm glow as the crowd inside the packed Sydney Opera House waited in reverent silence. It was supposed to be just another inspirational talk by Mel Gibson, a rare public appearance where the reclusive actor-director planned to discuss his career, faith, and redemption. But no one could have predicted that the night would end with a haunting message from beyond, and a collapse that left everyone breathless. Mel stood at center stage, microphone in hand, a silhouette of strength and weariness. His voice trembled slightly as he greeted the audience, but there was fire in his eyes, a man who had seen the edge and come back, now bearing his soul for the world to see. He spoke of his early career, the meteoric rise, the acclaim, and then the long, painful fall. "Fame is a strange kind of poison," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It tastes sweet at first, but over time, it eats you from the inside out." The crowd was riveted. He spoke of his battles with alcoholism, the public controversies, the shame, the nights alone when he questioned his worth, his very existence. And then, he spoke of faith. Not the kind found in polished churches or empty rituals, but the raw, desperate kind you cry out to when you're at the bottom. "I was done," Mel said. "I wasn't acting anymore. I was just surviving. Until one night, I prayed for something real, and I heard it. A voice, not loud but undeniable." The auditorium seemed to freeze, and then Mel's expression changed. Mid-sentence, his voice faltered. He staggered back slightly as if struck by an invisible force. A gasp rippled through the crowd. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Mel clutched his chest, eyes wide in disbelief, and collapsed. Panic erupted. Stagehands rushed forward. The hosts called for medical help. Paramedics, already stationed backstage, ran to him. For nearly 2 minutes, the room held its breath. They later said his pulse was erratic, his breathing shallow, but his eyes were moving rapidly under closed lids, as if watching something none of them could see. Later that night, after being stabilized in the hospital, Mel awoke to find his longtime friend and publicist, Rachel, sitting by his bed. "You scared the hell out of everyone," she said, trying to sound calm. "You just dropped. What happened?" Mel looked at her with a faraway gaze. "I saw him," he whispered. "Who?" He turned toward the window, eyes filling with tears. "John F. Kennedy." Rachel blinked, unsure if she heard right. "The president." Mel nodded. "Slowly, he spoke to me. In a place I can't explain. It was more real than here. He wasn't young or old, he was beyond time." "What did he say?" Mel took a deep breath, struggling to find the words. He said, "The world still listens to those with scars. But you have to use your voice, not to lift yourself, but to lift others. Redemption isn't a solo journey. It's a torch you pass." Rachel sat in stunned silence. "Do you think it was a vision? A dream?" Mel looked at her, a deep calm settling over him. "I think it was a message, and I know I'm not done." News of the onstage collapse spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with speculation. Was it a heart attack? A spiritual encounter? Hallucination? Theories flooded every corner of the internet, but Mel remained silent for a time. A few weeks later, he returned to the stage, not to promote a film, not to talk about Hollywood, but to launch something entirely different, a foundation. The Torchlight Project, global initiative for addiction recovery, mental health, and spiritual healing. It was aimed not at celebrities or the elite, but everyday people lost in the shadows of depression, addiction, trauma. People like Mel. Had once been. The first speech he gave after that night was raw and electrifying. "I've lived for applause, for approval, for fame. And I lost my soul in the process. But that night, when I collapsed, I believe something divine reached out to me. A message passed from a man who died with his dream unfinished. And he reminded me that life isn't about how brightly you burn but about the light you leave behind." Tears filled the eyes of thousands who listened, many of them survivors themselves of addiction, loss, or despair. He spoke not as a star, but as a man reborn. He opened up about his darkest moments. and how what saved him wasn't power or success, but grace, forgiveness, and a mission bigger than himself. Over the next year, the Torchlight Project opened centers in 3 countries. Stories of lives changed began to flood the news. A single mother in Detroit, a veteran in Dublin, a teenage girl in Manilor, crediting Mel's message with giving them hope again. And through it all, Mel never claimed to be a prophet. "I'm not a preacher," he said, "just someone who got a second chance and now knows what to do with it." Many questioned whether he truly saw John Kennedy that night. Skeptics called it a hallucination. Others said it was a stress-induced blackout. But Mel never tried to convince anyone. He simply shared the message and let it speak for itself. In the end, what mattered wasn't what Mel saw, but what he did with it. Because sometimes, a divine message doesn't come to make you special. It comes to remind you that your scars, your falls, and even your collapse can be the beginning of someone else's salvation. And when the light goes out for one man, it can be the spark that saves thousands.